Yeah, hello guys, welcome to Code with T. Today we'll be starting our software, we'll be starting our developments. And as you can see on the screen, I have the Laravel documentation open and I have the set of agenda that will be looking to actually work. I'll be looking to walk you through today. We are going to start with generating the a new Laravel project. Then we are going to work out identifying our models from the software, from the requirements, the functional requirements I showed us in the previous section. Then from there we are going to generate our models. Then we will work our way through down to configuring a database connection for ourselves. So let's start. So to generate a new Laravel documentation, it is either you have Composer installed or you have the Laravel installer installed. You have the Laravel installer installed. So I'll just make use of the Laravel installer by running Laravel new, the name of our app. Let's call it banking application API. So this will take some couple of minutes. So let's just pause. I will return. So this should take some couple of minutes. So let's this installation complete. Depending on your network strengths, that will determine how long the installation will actually take. So next thing is we need to go into our application and open. I make use of PHP Storm. Yeah, this is our new Laravel installation, which has finished installing. So now that we have our new Laravel application installed, the next thing that I would like us to do is identify our models based on our software requirements. So let me pull up our documentation. So if we look at these requirements, we need to kind of associate the models. We need to kind of identify the models. So the first thing you need to first do is to actually understand the requirements, which I actually explained in the previous video. So from what we see now, we know that we have one thing in common, which is a user. We need a user model. We also, if we look at the user, should be able to set up a PIN before transforming a transaction. User should be able to identify their phone numbers. User should be able. So in this user part now, we know that we are going to need the user name. You can identify. We need the user name, a user PIN. We need their phone number. Yeah. Then the user should be able to have their phone number represents their account. So that's another model, account. And an account we have, let's say we have the user ID and we have the account number. Yeah, if I'm correct, I believe that is the case. Then another thing that we can associate with an account number is with an account model is aside the account number, we know that it will have a balance. We also like to know if the account is blocked. right? So these are just intuitions. These are just things that I could, due to my own experience, things that I could establish from the requirements. Then a user should be able to make transfers. So that means we need to find a way to actually monitor the transfers being made within the system. So we need a transfer model, and the transfer model will require the sender ID. We can also take into the sender account number ID. We can also take note of the recipient's ID. Then we take note of you can also take note of the reference. That is more like something to identify a particular account number. Then we can take note of the status of the transfer. We can also take note of the amounts transferred. Then the next one is a user should be able to withdraw and send money to other users. So this is simply means users should be able to send money within the system. Now we have another one that says user should be able to download their transactions, which means all of these transfers and the user sent in and within the system needs to be tracked. So we need a transaction model. So our transaction model, we basically contain, let's say, a reference. Reference is basically a unique ID to identify each transaction, except the general ID, auto-generated ID. So we need the user ID. That is the user that actually owns the transaction, that initiated the transaction. So we also need the accounts ID. That is the account that was used. Then we also need the transfer ID. I will explain why we need the transfer ID later. Then we also need the amount. We need the balance. If you look at bank statements, right, they usually have deposits withdrawal, and balance. So the balance will tell you how much the user actually has left, or how much the user currently have in their account number as at the point of after performing that transaction. So so the amount is basically how much was either transferred out or transferred in. So we also need a category. So the category will tell us whether it is a deposit or it is a withdrawal. Then we also need a small Boolean value to state if it is confirmed, if the transaction has been confirmed or not. Then we need a description. Then the last one is probably the transaction dates. You can call it dates or transaction dates. Then you need a metal. Metal is basically something that is capable of holding more than regular data. It's not really needed. I'm just trying to add as much info as we might need. Now, the good thing is we've been able to identify we've been able to generate our project. We've identified our models. So the next thing for us to do now is to generate the models that we've identified. So we know we have user, account, transfer, transaction. So as I'm generating the model, I'll be generating the migrations for the models as well. So let's get back into our coding editor. Let me just remove this agenda. So so I'll start with the user. So we have I already have an alias for PHP artisan. So you will see me using a lot of PA. My PA simply means PHP artisan. So PA make model. So naturally the Laravel application comes with users. It already comes with users migration. So we just be editing that to our use. So what we are going to start with is the account migration. So account, we're going to generate the migration, and let's generate a controller as well. Yeah. So for now, that is all we need. So this generates the model, generates the migration, and generates the controller. Then also we need to generate for, what's the next one? Transfer. Then we also need to generate for transactions. Transaction. I hope I've not spelled that wrongly. Then we also need to generate for, okay, that's all. So that is all the models that we need to generate based on the functional requirements. It might be more if you are building an actual, it will be more actually if you are building an actual application that will be used in real life. So I will just modify this, which is our user model, our user migration. We already know that we need a name, we need an email for the users, we need a phone number. So let me say phone number, phone number. Then we also need, I think we are good. These basic details are enough. So the next thing that we need to take care of now is our account listing. So as I already said, okay, and our user, we also need pin. I forgot pin. So let's go back. Let's set a pin. A pin. So let's see. I can put it somewhere here. Doesn't really matter. A pin. So that will be stored as a string. Yeah, that will be stored as a string. Let's store it as a string. So a user can decide to. So let's make it nullable. I think we should also make our phone number unique as well. So no, since our phone number is unique, that will also make sure that we have unique account numbers, since we'll be generating our account numbers from the supplied phone number. So I think that works. That works. So okay, yeah. The next thing is to generate for accounts. And from the accounts, we know that we need the user ID, we need the account number, and the balance. So let's say dollar table, say foreign ID, which will be user ID. Then it is constrained to, let me say, the user's table. Yeah. And we can say on deletes, we can say null on deletes, to allow us to be able to delete a user without having much problem. We can then go ahead to state the column for our balance, our account number, I mean. So account number, I spelled that wrong. Yeah. So it will be unique as well. And this will actually help our query to move faster, to query account by account number or user ID. So the next thing we want to set up is our balance, the balance of the account number. So for the balance, the default is total of 8, which means we the highest number of digits we can have is normal digits is 6, then plus an extra 2 decimal place. So I like to increase it. So let's say 16 by 4. So this is actually big enough for us. So we can set the default to 0. So as at the point of creating the account number, we'll have a default of 0 set as our balance, which is actually reasonable to me. Let's add soft deletes. Soft deletes. As I'm adding my soft deletes, I like to be adding the traits on the model as well. Soft deletes, so I won't come across any problem later. The next thing we can do is the next thing we need to take care of is our transfers. So our transfers are basically they contain, what would we identify, the sender ID, the sender account number, the sender account ID. So let's identify it. The table will be foreign ID, sender ID. It will be constrained by the users table. Then can say null on deletes. That reminds me, we need to make it nullable if we really want it to null on deletes. Same thing we need to do for the accounts table null on deletes. We need to make this nullable if you want it to be able to null on delete. So we've identified the accounts. So this will create a foreign key for us on the transfers table. Then we need the sender account ID, that is the account the transfer was made from. So we have that as sender account ID. So we can make it nullable as well. Constrained on accounts table, right? To come to think about it, since we are using soft deletes, I don't think that should really be much of a problem. Let's leave it. If we need to remove it later on, we can always remove that, since we are still very much in the development mode. So the next column that I need is the recipient. That is the person that actually received the transfer. Recipients accounts ID. Yeah, I think I got that correctly. Then the next thing we need now is the reference. I like generating reference. The log table string is always a string. Reference I'll index it and give it a name of transfer reference index. Transfer unknown word. Transfer. That's quite surprising. Transfer. That might spell it wrongly. Reference. reference index. Mm. Mm. Unknown column. Unknown column. Is this supposed to be like an array or something? No, string. Column definition. I think it's probably my ID that is messing up. Let me just leave it. Dollar table. Then we need a way to know the status of our transfers. Even though this for now does not really matter since it's we are not in contact with an external system. Well, let's just put it there for the sake of this. Then the amount that was transferred, let's say another 16 by 4 decimal place. So this 4, we make sure that at least we have a good number of decimal places. Then the next one is timestamps. We already have that. So the next thing I would like us to look into is transactions. Yeah. So our transactions table, as I was saying, actually contains quite a number of columns as well. We already identified most of it. So let me just copy this. So the first thing is we need a reference as well. So I'll call this one transactions. I'll call this transaction. I'll call this to transfer. So transactions. Yeah. The next thing we need is the user that actually performed the transaction, which is can say user ID constrained to users. Let's set it to null on delete as well. And let's keep it a nullable. Next thing we need is our accounts. I don't want to use null on delete on these tables. Let me just use soft delete so that it will be trackable. Yeah, I don't want to use delete. Let me just, because we want to know the user that actually performed those transactions. So let's use table soft delete. So we'll do the same thing for this guy. So we'll not want to worry about all of this anymore. Okay, so I think we are good on that. So the next thing is we need to know the account ID, the transaction was performed on accounts ID. Then okay, this will be accounts. Then we need to know the amounts. Let me just grab this, the amounts. Okay, then we also need to keep track. If it is an internal transfer, we would like to know the transfer ID. So if a transfer is made, it will be recorded on this table as a transaction. So if tomorrow we can easily know the transactions for a particular step. So the next thing is we need the balance of the user as at the point of performing this transaction. So let's call this balance. The next thing we need is a category of the transaction. Let me call it this string. We can do that. Category. So the category is to know whether it is a deposit or it is a withdrawal. So deposit basically means money coming into the account, while withdrawal means money going out of the account. It will also be nice to know if the transfer is confirmed. Let me just copy this. I just call it confirmed. And this would be a boolean. So let's say default is false, right? Then the next thing we need is a description. Let me just copy a string. And this could be a string is enough. String description of the transaction. This can be null. Let's make it optional. Then the transaction dates, or the table dates time. So let me say transaction. Let me just call it date. Yeah, dates. Then the next thing is our metal. So I have a metal column on this. Okay, I don't think we need a metal for this transfers anyway. So we can say dollar table text metal. I'll make it nullable. Yeah, I think we are good. So this is our transactions table. So what we are going to do is, for every transaction that actually occurs, we are going to record a transaction for both the sender accounts, and we are going to record a transaction for the receiver account as well. So that way it will be easy for us to achieve these parts, being able to categorize their transactions and be able to download it. So that's why we have it that way. So the next thing we are going to now do is let's prepare our models. Let me check our agenda. So we've identified our models, we are generating models. So what we need to do now is let's prepare our models, of course, by defining relationships and the likes. So for our accounts, we have I'll just set it to protected $guarded as null, as empty. Let me just copy everything across the models. Just copy this across the models. I like to use guarded for this as well. I don't really mind. So the accounts. So now we need to define the relationship. The first thing we know is an account is going to need a owner, the owner of the account. Function owner. Right. So an account can only belongs to a particular user. So return $this just belongs to a user. Yeah. Right. We can then also define the transactions that has been performed against a particular account. So it will have as many, correct? So let's set the type. I like using type. Yeah, set the type, and then let's define the relationship for transactions as well. A transaction will also belong to a user as well. So the owner of the transaction. The owner, we could also name it user. So the owner of the transaction. Then if you look at our transactions table, let me just bring this down. Split down. Let me minimize my transactions. So the owner is basically this guy, the owner of the particular transaction. We can just define it there for easy access. User ID. Then we have for the accounts the transaction was performed on. That will be accounts class. Then that will be the accounts ID, correct? So this is us defining our relationships between our models. Then the transfer, we also have some relationships. So let's bring it down. So let me remove this, remove that. So the accounts we've defined. So all we want to define now is this transfer. So we need to know the sender, who is sending it. So function. So public function sender. That will be, yeah, this, it will belong to a user class, right? Let's set something. So it returns, it belongs to relationship. So we can easily get the sender account as well, since we've kind of associated it with the user. So sender account. I know that I could easily get the account from the user, but I'm just trying to avoid extra queries. So our foreign ID will be sender account ID. I'm just being lazy. I like, if I can define the relationship, let me just define it. So we need to duplicate this into receiver receiver. Come to think about it, we didn't take notes of the receiver in our migrations. I wonder how we actually missed that. So we need a recipient ID. Recipient. 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 I don't know. I'm getting that spelling wrong. Recipient ID. Let me just move it to this side. I want it to come before this. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, that works. Recipient ID. So we can call this uh, recipient ID. You can call it recipient. Kind of feel like receiver is more appealing. I don't know. I don't know about you. Receiver. Oh, am I not getting the correct spelling correctly? Receiver. RBCE. Should be CEI. Receiver. Yeah. So it belongs to a receiver, and it will also belong to a receiver account. Or maybe we should just call it recipients. I think that we allow it flow with our database, our schema. So let's call it recipients. Recipient, person receiving it. So this will be recipient's account ID, and this will be recipient's ID. We have to define that. We have to define the foreign key. Yeah. So I think we are good for now. So the next thing we need to define is our user relationship. So the one thing we are sure of is just like an account, we have many transactions. A user, we have many transactions as well. So transactions. User, we have many transactions. A user, we have many transfers. Here is the sender transfers. I has made. Where is the sender? A user, we also have an account number. Accounts, which one will be belongs to, that will be S1, since the foreign key is on the other table. Accounts, that will be, I think, let me see, what's the foreign key? Okay, it's user ID. So we don't necessarily have to define it. Let me just put it for educative sake. That will be S1. Yeah. So we've successfully defined all our relationship, and we've generated the models. So the next thing is, in order for us to perform our migration, we need to like configure our database. That is, the database will be saving our data into env. So Yes. So dump application ID, password. I think we are good. Yeah, I think we are good. Yeah, we are good. Yeah, so I think we are good. Yes, so I already have a custom database set up. The port is 3307. So you set this up based on your own database connection. Be mindful, the database that I'm making use of is a Docker database. So this is a custom port. A normal MySQL database port will be 3306. So I'll just go ahead to create the database schema. We call it that. Apply. Yeah. So we are good. So let me try to run the migration. PHP migrates. Yeah, my migration is done. So if I come and check my database now, so you see that we have the transactions, we have the transfers, we have the users table, and we have the accounts table. So that is. So let's talk about the summary. The summary, what we've learned today is we've basically learned how to actually um, initialize a new Laravel project, how to set up database connection, and how to migrate our the schema that we created. Then we also learned how to identify the models and database schema from the functional requirements that was shared with us. So the functional requirements could come from anyone, could come from your project manager, could come from a client, could come from anyone. So it is your duty to actually convert it into something you can now familiarize into code. Then also we learned how to actually define our relationship, how to associate each of the models, either it is one to one, if it is belongs to, if it is as one relationship. Maybe later I might just decide to just add another tutorial in the channel to teach you how to really associate all of this relationship. Thank you for staying this long with me, and I hope you actually enjoyed it and you recommend this tutorial to your friend, colleagues at work. Please do not forget to click on the subscribe button. Thank you and enjoy your coding time.